Hello everyone. In last video we have understood the social impact assessment study and the steps and procedure involved in conducting the social impact assessment. In this video we are going to understand the next steps in the procedure for acquiring the land by the government. So the next step is publication of preliminary notification. So the notification is issued under section 11 of the Land Acquisition Act 2013. So this is the first formal step in land acquisition. So the government, after conducting the social impact assessment study, and when it comes to a decision of acquiring the land, the next step would be issuing a preliminary notification to the public that a particular land is going to be acquired by the government. So in that procedure, the preliminary notification is the first formal step which is issued after completion and approval of social impact assessment and within 12 months from the date of the SIA report's publication. So under the social impact assessment study, after government taking the final decision and publishing it in the public, so within 12 months from that date, the preliminary notification shall be issued by the government. So if within 12 months the notification if not issued by the government, then again social impact assessment study shall be conducted. So the publication of notification shall be done in the affected areas in the following manner. So it shall be issued in the official gazette in 2 local newspapers, and in that too one newspaper shall be of the regional language of that area, and it shall also be published in the concerned municipality and panchayat offices and government websites. So the notification shall contain a statement of public purpose for which the land is proposed to be acquired, a summary of the social impact assessment report, reasons necessitating the displacement of affected persons. So the notification shall include all these points. So after issuing the notification of acquisition by the government, the next step would be preliminary survey of land and powers of officers. So under section 12, the government will conduct the survey of the land which it wants to acquire. So for the purpose of enabling the appropriate government to determine the extent of land to be acquired. So the government, for conducting the preliminary survey of the land, government will check the adaptability of the land, whether the land is adapted for the purpose for which it wants to acquire, and it sets the boundaries which it proposed to acquire, and after calculating the boundaries it also marks the levels of boundaries. And after conducting the survey, if the government is satisfied that the land is adaptable to the purpose for which it wanted to acquire, then it will continue with the next procedure, that is hearing of objections. So at every stage of acquisition, the public are given a chance to present their opinions. So any person interested in land may file written objections within 60 days from the date of the notification under section 11 to the collector in writing. So under section 11, when the government issues preliminary notification, within 60 days of receipt of that notice, the interested person on the land can give written objections to the collector. So the objections can relate to the area and sustainability of land proposed to be acquired, justification offered for public purpose, the findings of the social impact assessment report. So the objections can only be related to these things, that is any objections related to public purpose, that is the purpose for which the government wants to acquire does not come under the public purpose, or any drawbacks or any objections related to the social impact assessment report. After hearing and examining the objections, the collector submits a report with recommendations to the appropriate government. So the appropriate government decides whether to continue with the acquisition, modify or drop it. So it can make changes in the acquisition process or can modify it or completely stop the process of acquisition. So after the notification is issued and objections are taken by the government, the next step would be preparation of rehabilitation and resettlement scheme. So rehabilitation and resettlement is the process by which the displaced persons are given a new place to start their life with basic amenities and other supporting livelihood provided by the government. As their old homes is being acquired by the government, the displaced persons are shifted to some new place. So this process is called rehabilitation and resettlement. So here displaced persons are those persons whose houses have been acquired by the government. So upon the publication of the preliminary notification under subsection 1 of section 11 by the collector, the administrator for rehabilitation and resettlement shall conduct a survey and undertake a census of the affected families. So, after the preliminary notification is issued and after hearing the objections, the resettlement scheme is started. So, for that, a census or survey is conducted by the administrator who is appointed for this purpose. So, which shall include particulars of lands and immovable properties being acquired of each affected families. So, this census or survey shall include the number of lands or immovable properties which are acquired by the government and the livelihoods lost in respect of land losers and landless whose livelihoods are primarily dependent on the lands being acquired. So the government is not only focusing on the lands or the immovable property which is acquired, but also it is calculating the livelihoods dependent on that land. For example, if a farmer whose livelihood or the source of income is totally dependent on the agricultural land. So now as the land is being acquired by the government, his livelihood is lost. So all those are also calculated and it shall provide some relief to the affected persons. And the list of public utilities and government buildings which are affected or likely to be affected where resettlement of affected families is involved. So the list of public utilities and government buildings such as the banks, post offices or any other government buildings which are affected due to the acquisition of land shall also be calculated under this census. So the details of amenities and infrastructural facilities which are affected or likely to be affected where resettlement of affected families is involved. And it shall also include any other amenities such as the transportation facilities, water supply, electricity and other infrastructural facilities which are being affected by the acquisition shall be calculated, and the details of any common property resources being acquired. So under the rehabilitation and resettlement scheme, the government shall calculate all these things. So after the draft scheme for rehabilitation and resettlement, along with a specific report on the claims and objections raised by the public hearing is submitted to the collector shall submit the draft scheme with his suggestion to the Commissioner Rehabilitation and Resettlement for approval of the scheme. So after conducting the survey, draft scheme is prepared and after hearing the claims and objections by the public, it shall be submitted to the collector. The collector further submits it to the Commissioner for Rehabilitation and Resettlement for approval of the scheme. So after the rehabilitation and resettlement scheme is approved, the next step is publication of declaration and summary of rehabilitation and resettlement. So under section 19, a final declaration is given by the government stating that a particular land is going to be acquired, and it also includes the summary of rehabilitation and resettlement. So the declaration is made after objections under section 15 hearing by collector and preparation of R&R scheme under section 18. So after hearing objections under section 15 and after the rehabilitation and resettlement scheme is finally published to the public under section 18, the declaration is made under section 19. So the appropriate government issues a declaration stating that land is acquired for public purpose. So the declaration includes the summary of rehabilitation and resettlement, the purpose for which the government is going to acquire the land, and all the details concerning to the area of land which is going to be acquired. All the details are mentioned in the final declaration. So the declaration must be made within 12 months from the date of preliminary notification under section 11. So the preliminary notification which is issued by the government under section 11, from that date within 12 months the final declaration shall be made. So if the final declaration is not made within 12 months, the entire acquisition process lapses. That is, the preliminary notification is issued in the month of December 2024. So within 12 months from that date, the final decision and publication of the declaration shall be made, or else the entire procedure, that is the rehabilitation procedure and all the procedures which were done, will be lapsed, and the government shall conduct again a new procedure. But there is an exception to this, which is if the lapse is due to court proceedings, that time or that period is excluded. And the next point is the government can make different declarations from time to time if acquisition is being done in phases. So it is not necessary that the whole declaration shall be made at a single time. The government can make the declarations from time to time if the acquisition is made through phases. So the declaration must be made under the hand and seal of the secretary to the government or any other duly authorized officer. So every declaration which is made shall be signed and sealed by either the secretary of the government or any other person who is authorized to do the same. So the declaration must be published in the official gazette in 2 local newspapers, one in regional language, on the website of the appropriate government, and at prominent places in the affected areas. So the final declaration which is made and signed by the secretary shall be made available to the public in the official gazette and also in the local newspapers. So this declaration acts as a final approval of land acquisition by the government. So after this declaration is made, then the affected families are given with the compensation and award. So the next step would be determination of award. So here award includes both monetary and non-monetary reliefs. Monetary reliefs includes the payment of compensation, that is in the form of money, and non-monetary includes the reliefs which are given other than money. So if a land is acquired from a family, a land in return is given to that family, that is land to land. Or if the government provides any skills or conducts any training program to the persons who have lost their livelihood. So these comes under the non-monetary reliefs. So both monetary and non-monetary comes under the definition of award. So let us understand how an award is determined. Determination of market value of land by collector. Under section 26, the collector shall determine the market value of the land. So basis for determining market value, the collector shall adopt whichever is highest of the following 3, that is circle rate, average sale price, consent amount. So from these 3 values, whichever amount is higher, that amount is paid to the affected persons. So circle rate or Stamp Act value, the rate specified under the Indian Stamp Act for registration of sale deeds in the area. So under the Indian Stamp Act, the value of land which is mentioned, or average of sale deeds of similar type of land in the nearest vicinity over 3 years before the acquisition notification. So to determine the award, the government can also adopt this method. For example, let's say there are 5 lands which are of similar type and they are sold at a price of 9 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 11 lakhs, 12 lakhs and 13 lakhs. So now the average of all these lands will be made and the average price is given as award. Or the government may also consider consent amount in PPP, that is public private partnership or private company projects. The compensation amount agreed upon in case of acquisitions through consent under section 2 subsection 2. So the negotiations done between the private companies and the affected person and the agreed amount can also be taken into consideration. So among these 3, which is highest, that amount will be given as award. So if according to the Stamp Act, the land value is 10 lakhs and according to average sale price it is 12 lakhs and according to PPP it is 9 lakhs. So the highest value will be given as award. So in cases of determining the market value, these methods are used. So there are some more parameters which are considered by collector in determination of award, which are mentioned under section 28. So in determining the amount of compensation to be awarded for land acquired, the collector shall take into account damage to standing crops or trees, damage from severance of land if the acquisition harms any other property, relocation of residence or business, loss of profits or livelihood, damage if any caused due to reduction in profits from the land. So all these parameters are also considered while giving the award. And the next is determination of value of things attached to land or buildings. So not only the land value but also the things which are attached to the land or building. For example, if a land has 100 mango trees, so the value of the land increases. So the thing which is attached to the land shall also be considered and the compensation or award is increased. So when land is acquired, the collector must separately determine the value of buildings, trees, crops, wells, other immovable properties made by the owner or interested person. So for that purpose, the collector use services of experienced persons in respective fields. So the collector can appoint any persons who are qualified in the fields of agriculture, forestry, or in any other fields to calculate and determine the value of land. So this is about the rehabilitation process and how an award is determined by the government when the land is acquired. So that's all in this video. I hope you all have understood it. Thank you.